As far back as 5,000 years ago, skilled and unskilled slaves and conscripts, soldiers, and many others needed managing. How to best manage people is therefore a very long-standing and difficult issue. The modern concern with managing workers comes from the Industrial Revolution. Industrialization causes a massive shift away from farming and small-scale household production, literally cottage industries, to industrial work and factories and other workplaces. Depending on where you live, this transition may have occurred 200 years ago or is occurring right now. But the changes and the implications for workers and managers are the same. It's important that we understand the profound nature of these changes. Industrialists displaced household as the controller of the production process, so individuals lost the autonomy and the discretion to decide when and how to work, how to structure their work tasks, when to do them, where they were going to work. And income also now becomes individually based rather than household based. Finally, women's unpaid caring work was rendered invisible as new norms equated valuable work to paid work done outside of the home. Now, early industrialists believed that they needed to impose strict discipline and closely monitor this workforce that wasn't used to working for someone else in a factory. And so the foreman and the supervisor really became king. This is a system that we now refer back to as the Foremans Empire, where the supervisor had the unquestioned authority to hire, to fire, to discipline, to assign work hours, and to motivate workers. And how were workers motivated? Through strict monitoring and the drive system. Threats, cajoling, profanity even, pointing to the factory gate, pointing to all those unemployed workers willing to take their job if they weren't willing to do exactly what the foreman wanted. Now, after this, there's an effort to try to systematize management as the production process becomes more complicated and factories get larger and more complex. Now, this didn't all pertain to human resources, but part of it did. And perhaps the most famous example that still endures today is scientific management, or Taylorism, after my distant cousin Frederick Winslow Taylor, who was really at the forefront of this movement. Now, Taylorism, or scientific management, sought to find the one best way to do every job. Break every job down into small, standardized, repetitive tasks that any unskilled worker could do. For example, Taylor spent 4 months figuring out that the optimal shovel size was 21 pounds. Not 20 pounds, not 22 pounds, but 21 pounds. And so therefore these jobs were broken down into small, standardized tasks that unskilled workers could do. And who was it that was determining how to break these jobs down? It wasn't workers, no, it was managers. They were seen as the ones who had all of the knowledge. What were workers? Workers were just cogs in a machine. They were just hands, farm hands, factory hands, deck hands. You know the phrase, all hands on deck. Now, around the same time, there was also an effort to apply psychological principles to managing workers. So this wasn't seen as only trying to get the technical conditions of work right, but also to get the human conditions right. Focus on appreciating that workers have different skills and levels of cognitive ability. Focus on the fact that job satisfaction, what we now call employee engagement, and other attitudes are important for how work gets done and how productive workers are. And also appreciate that group dynamics in the workplace are also an important factor. And this really is the key task of any manager today, not only to get the economic and technical conditions right, but also to get the human conditions right.
What is it that impresses you? What does it take to get a job at Google? What do you have to have?
Well, the two biggest things, and actually before I say that, it doesn't matter where you went to school, and it doesn't matter the status, the pedigree, Ivy League or not, we don't care. We used to care.
Is that how Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson got the internships?
That's exactly how. Yeah, you should see their resumes. Disaster. Absolute disaster. So we care really, there's 4 things, but the 2 most important are, 1, basically how bright you are, cognitive ability. So we'll ask you questions like, give me an example of an incredibly tough problem you solved and how you solved it and how you worked through it. So you should get ready with those kinds of examples to share with us. The second is, we care about not your formal titles, where you're a VP of something or where you're president of the student body. We care about how you lead. And we talk about emergent leadership, this notion that when there's a problem, you step in to help solve it, but as importantly, then you step out and let somebody else take charge.